Evil empires, the lifeblood of any good fantasy or sci-fi series. The all-powerful, ever-expanding, unfathomably cruel empire is a perfect force a protagonist can struggle against over the course of a series. Frightening abilities, charismatic leaders, and perhaps most importantly, a cool military with a killer aesthetic. Evil empires make viewers fans of the villains and turn series into all-time classics. However, not all evil empires are built the same. Some excel at their purpose with brutal efficiency, while others are so incompetently run you wonder how they even pose a threat. And for that reason, I've endeavored to assess some of the most popular evil empires in fiction to determine which one is truly the best. So, without further ado, I'm Bates of Dust, and I will be ranking the best evil empires in fiction. Just so I can head off the inevitable comments to come, I'm quite aware of the Warhammer 40k franchise, and factions in it like the Imperium of Man. But I know next to nothing about the franchise, and I don't really have a big desire to LARP as a 40k fan for clout. All the information I have on 40k comes down to there's a group of space fascists with multiple sets of organs, there's green psychic soccer hooligans, and magical perverts. I am open to recommendations for easy-to-access beginner media to understand 40k better in the future. Alright, so now for the actual ranking, I'm going to grade the empires on three main metrics. 1. Their ability to expand and control territory. 2. The empire's longevity and stability. And 3. The quality of life for people within the imperial core. So, the very first empire that I'm going to apply this to for my ranking is one that's near and dear to my heart. That, of course, is the world government of One Piece. Now, the world government in One Piece is a pretty impressive force on paper. Under their belt, they have over 800 years of total dominance of the entire planet. And in their eyes, they were able to not only defeat the legendary warrior Joy Boy and the Ancient Kingdom with all of its crazy ancient weapons, they were also able to delete 100 years of recorded history from the collective consciousness of the entire planet, and continue to control the information for centuries to follow. That's a pretty impressive feat. They also flooded the entire planet and created a world system where unaffiliated kingdoms would give tribute in order to protect it from pirates, which are, I would say, a feature, not a bug, of the world government. This is a pretty impressive system. There's lots of good trade, lots of good stability, and it functions pretty well for the people within the actual government system. Kingdoms who are affiliated with the world government fare pretty well. Everyone else fares less well, and of course, unaffiliated kingdoms are victimized by both the government and pirates alike. The system is not perfect, but it has worked pretty well and been pretty sustainable. And in addition, the world government has also managed to genocide multiple special races over the years, reducing groups like the Buccaneers or Lunarians to a mere handful, despite their initial numbers. I would say, as an evil empire, the world government has a very impressive stat sheet. But I would say the biggest weakness with the world government is their talent pool, because it leaves much to be desired. The cascading failures of the Gorosei, Holy Knights, and Cypher Pole over the past 200 years in One Piece history has pretty much destabilized the entire government system and brought it to the absolute brink. So, just to name a few of the world government L's in the past couple hundred years, we have losing the Nika fruit, failing to destroy Emmet, the NS Lobby incident, the God Valley incident, the Egghead incident. repeatedly getting beaten by the Roger pirates after failing to retrieve Shanks. Fisher's a Tiger's entire raid on the Red Line, where he managed to climb the entire thing and free tons and tons of slaves. The entire Reverie incident, including Sabo seeing Emu, who is supposed to be the hidden ruler of the world, and escaping with his life. Rox breaking into the flower room and confronting Emu directly. And of course, most of all, Emu personally fumbling the D1 prospect that was King Harold by pumping the Enslave Everyone accelerator way too fast. Emu has genuinely been caught slipping in the past few years, but hopefully, as of chapter 1189, things can turn around for him. So even though they started off good and have a lot of stats, I do fear for their future, and a lot of the problems they have are self-inflicted. They need to up their talent pool and stop hiring frauds. I give them B tier. Next up is everyone's favorite fascist military, Super Earth. Now, the Super Earth Federation has a really impressive military that is able to quickly respond to multiple threats, is able to always kind of replenish itself despite losing tons and tons of soldiers, has many devoted citizens, a excellent propaganda campaign, and a really great system of crisis management. No matter what happens, what changes, the Super Earth government is able to quickly respond, come up with a piece of propaganda, and attack the threat. The problem is, many of the crises of Super Earth are self-inflicted. They frequently kill their own troops when they embark, and you could say that the automatons, the Illuminates, and even the Terminids are all exist as threats to Super Earth because of a crisis that they initiated, a war that they started, or an experiment that was gone wrong. So, although they are able to deal with it, they would not have to deal with these problems if things were managed a bit better. And while this opinion might be heretical, we've seen where it's gone. Super Earth's home planet has been directly attacked by enemy forces as of late, and they have been unable to quell threats from Cyberstan or find the Illuminate fleet. So, even though they are able to maintain things, who can say how long it will last? And with the millions of soldiers dying all the time, how many more people does Super Earth reasonably have to throw at this threat over and over and over again? For that, I have no choice but to give Super Earth C tier. Moving on to a couple of big factions from the Fallout series, I'm going to start by bringing up the Enclave. Now, the Enclave are my first big losers in the Empire ranking category. I can only describe them as a walking L factory, and they're the true potential man of the Fallout franchise. Now, the reason I criticize the Enclave so much is they have literally every advantage over the Wasteland. They have tech, they have resources, they have energy, they have advanced weaponry, they have a stability and a proper command structure from the old world. And they also had over 200 years to plan the perfect strategy to conquer the Wastes. And yet, they are 0-2 both in the East and West Coast factions, and 0-3 if you count Fallout 76, where they managed to take out themselves off screen before the events of the game. And they're about to go 0-4 in the TV show. Their greatest and best accomplishments are killing unarmed civilians. I'm sorry, Enclave fans, but you gotta nuke the whole generation. I'm giving them a D tier. Next up in the Fallout franchise is Caesar's Legion, or Kaiser's Legion if you're feeling fancy. They're a pretty incredible military coming from relatively humble beginnings. Edward Sallow was able to take random tribes and turn them into well-trained soldiers with elite tactics. They're able to maintain safe roads and stable trade in a very unstable Mojave. And Caesar himself has a pretty decent plan for the future once New Vegas and the Hoover Dam have been conquered. They also possess a very impressive spy network with the Frumentari, and they're a serious threat to the NCR, who has been established in the region for decades. Caesar's Legion is the real deal when it comes to a conquering force in the wasteland. Fortunately, everything else about them kind of sucks. 50% of the population is de facto slaves, as all women are forced to work, to repair, and be breeding stock for the next generation of Caesar's Legion. And being a legionnaire isn't a lot of fun. When you're not out battling and fighting to death, your life isn't that great. No drugs are allowed. Heck, if you want to heal yourself, you can't do it with a stim pack because most of the Legion does not believe in modern medicine. In fact, the people who have it best in Caesar's Legion are the unaffiliated citizens who are just living under their protection. The actual legionnaires in the camps, not as great. And I will say, the future Legion doesn't look so great. As intelligent as Caesar may be, as great a tactician he is, and as robust as his plans for the future are, he has one small problem. Well, actually, you could say it's a very big problem, and that's the large tumor that is inside of his head. This brain tumor, of course, will affect his ability to plan, to think, and to strategize in the future, and, at the very least, is going to kill him in the next couple of years. And you may say, well, and Caesar definitely has guys lined up that can run the Legion, right? Well, the next guy up is Legadlanius, an individual whose only desire is to kill, burn, and pillage, and has no type of future planning or desire to turn the Legion into anything beyond fancy raiders. So, even though the Legion on paper has a lot of things going for it right now, its future ain't looking so bright. So I have to unfortunately hit it with a solid B tier. Next up is Frieza Force. Now, some may say, well, didn't Frieza inherit his kingdom from his father? Maybe. But have you seen what Frieza's done with the place? The Frieza Force is a powerful, robust galactic empire. Multiple species are brought to heel, and Frieza has a very strong, diverse army of powerful soldiers running a pseudo-real estate scheme of conquering planets, clearing out the inhabitants, and then selling those empty planets to other species. And while it is part of a family business, he's clearly done more with the place than his father, King Cold, or his brother, Cooler. And you have to say, Frieza's forces genuinely appear to like him, especially the upper level, and he doesn't rule by just fear. In fact, they liked him so much that even after his death, the Frieza forces got together to steal the Dragon Balls and resurrect him back to life. And Frieza is nothing if not resilient. After being cut in half and blown up by Goku and Namek, well, he got the cyborg parts together and went to attack Earth. Even after getting killed by Trunks and staying dead for a decade, as soon as he was resurrected, well, he showed right back up, trained, got Golden Frieza form, and then proceeded to bring BTA to the Z Fighters. And even after this is feat, Frieza managed to put an all-time performance in the Tournament of Power where he saved his universe, if not the entire multiverse, with his skills and abilities. And what emperor can you say in this entire list saved his universe for his people? Truly, Frieza is one of a kind. And as soon as he was brought back to life, post Tournament of Power, he immediately took back his kingdom, and everything was fine, and everyone was happy to see him. And that is, I think, the most astounding part about the Frieza Force, and what makes them so highly rated. No matter how many times Frieza is defeated or dead, the Empire continues without him. Maybe not to the same capacity, but it stays in a relatively static position. As soon as Frieza returns to take his rightful place, boom, the Empire starts right back up like nothing happened, and Frieza can continue to conquer his many territories. And in the latest events of Super, Frieza managed to become the most powerful mortal in the entire Universe 7. So, I mean, he's a top tier warrior, and everyone likes him. His territories remain succinct even after his death. I have no choice but to give Frieza our very first S tier. Next up, Advent from the XCOM series. Now, they had a pretty great start. They able to Not only were they able to wipe out Earth's militaries and defeat the XCOM program in XCOM Enemy Unknown, they were able to accomplish all of this in under half a year. They effectively quelled rebellion and reformed human society into something that was accepting of their new alien overlords. They quickly created a clone army that controlled most of the planet and had a pretty impressive propaganda campaign. And even when things got tough, they were able to process millions of people into sludge while maintaining order for their ultimate Avatar project. Unfortunately for Advent, they were defeated after a mere 20 years when the commander from XCOM Enemy Unknown was rescued, recovered, and led a very impressive insurgency. Not only that, the leadership of Advent, the Elders, were effectively dying the entire time and needed the Avatar project in order to host their psychic bodies. And I must say, that project took way too long for the amount of time they had control over humanity. Because of that, they fell apart pretty quick, and as soon as the Elders went, Advent immediately collapsed into absolute nothing. And to add a cherry on top, as they were being defeated, they had the gall to pull out the "You don't understand, Commander. We were holding them back" gimmick at the very end. Like, get out of here, bro. They are a solid C tier. Next up, we have a fan favorite classic faction, and that, of course, is the Fire Nation from the Avatar series. Now, they were able to utilize a impressive tech advantage over their neighbors to conquer large portions of the four nations immediately. They wiped out the entire air nomad society, something that was not even rectified or healed till the Spirit Portals in the Legend of Korra series was able to return airbending to the people. Not only this, they were able to make massive technological innovations in warfare, and Fire Nation society was pretty successful, and the citizens lived fairly well in spite of the war. And the Fire Nation was only defeated by a divine reincarnation of the Ultimate Warrior and several once-in-a-generation talents in the art of bending teaming up all together in order to stop them. So overall, Fire Nation had a very good run, plus 100 years, impressive military. There was only one small issue. The once-in-a-generation talents and the Avatar was only about 13 years old. Because even though these were once-in-a-generation talents and the divine reincarnation of the Avatar, they were 13-year-olds. And ultimately, if your empire gets folded by a bunch of children, I will be side-eyeing you. I don't care if it is the Avatar. That kid's not old enough to drive, and should not be old enough to dismantle your entire kingdom. So even though they start off great and have everything going for them, I unfortunately have to give them a still very high A tier. Next up, we have 3 different Star Wars empires. Now, there are many Star Wars empires. In fact, enough to make a own video. So I've limited it to 3 of the perhaps the biggest ones, or the ones I have the most familiarity with. So let's start with one of the older Star Wars empires, and perhaps the most prestigious, the Infinite Empire of the Rakata. Now, you have to give them huge props for having over 5,000 years of domination in the Galactic realm. They had incredible control over the Force, dominance in tech, civilization, and influence. They were given the tiniest leg up by the Qua, and they took everything. Extremely impressive. They managed to hold a society together in spite of them being a pack of warmongering cannibals, which is a very difficult task to pull off. They conquered over 500 worlds, they irrecoverably changed many planets, including Tatooine, but that is where the glaze stops. Even though they were able to spread across the galaxy and do all these incredible things, the L that they took in their final moments is something to behold. The Rakatans managed to overuse the galaxy's greatest renewable resource, that being the Force. In fact, all their tech, skills, and everything that held society together also relied on the Force. So, they couldn't even operate their own ships after a Force plague came and cut off the entire species from the Force for their constant and persistent abuse of the dark side. How do you manage this? How do you manage to be so dark-sided and have such bad vibes that the Force cuts you off like a bartender after your 6th drink? It's baffling, to be honest. They fumbled the greatest advantage in Star Wars history.
We had a good thing, you stupid son of a... We had
dark side.
We had a lab. We had everything we needed. It all ran like clockwork. You could have shut your mouth, cooked, and made as much money as you ever needed. It was perfect. But no, you just had to blow it up. You and your pride and your ego.
But at the end of their lifespan, they were trapped on their home planet again in a tribal state, running around with spears, thinking ships were magic. It is an incredible fall off to behold, and entirely self-inflicted. None of the societies under them would have been able to rebel unless they had this massive fall off, and it's just sad to see. There's a big lesson here. Relying entirely on one source of energy will ultimately lead your society to failure. And because of that, I can only give the Rakatan Empire B tier. Next up, the Galactic Empire. The classic. The empire that so many science fiction stories are based on. Now, I must say, they managed to quickly and efficiently dispatch the Jedi Order. They also had the whole galaxy shaking in fear when they were established. And you have to say, Emperor Palpatine managing to turn the Republic on a dime into his own personal empire was an impressive piece of statecraft. They had a massive standing army, multiple super weapons in their roster, and just for rebels to have a chance at getting to them and stopping them, so many of them had to die, get turned out, tortured, and ultimately killed. And a lot of rebels got stomped out before they even had a crumb of success when it came to tangling of the Empire. It is the format for a reason. And you gotta admit, they have a ton of aura. Now, unfortunately for the Empire, the frequent competition between their own internal organizations, with a Sith-like structure of stomping on your fellow man in order to get ahead, meant that information was not passed along, which was really detrimental for an event that we'll bring up in a second. Not only that, they poured billions of credits in untold labor, lives, and blood into a super weapon that was operational for about 1 week before it got destroyed. Imagine a secret weapon that you had to take years to build. So many lives. You have entire facilities like Narkina 5 dedicated to building this one thing. You have killed so many people in order to maintain the utmost secrecy, and you managed to use it to blow up one planet. One. And then immediately it's taken out by a farm boy from Tatooine. That's embarrassing. And not only that, that caused a cascading effect which kickstarted the rebellion in full. The recruits were poorly retrained, as we can see with many stormtroopers and their awful aim, and they actively discarded and burned through their limited pool of Force users with the Inquisitor program. And while the Inquisitors were able to hunt down Jedi, I mean, you could have had so many strong Force users on their side, but instead you trained them kind of bad to do jobs that they were either unable to do, or if they got too ambitious, were killed for doing. Just a terrible waste of resources, all in all. Moreover, the Empire is xenophobic to a fault. Thrawn, who was perhaps the greatest admiral in Empire history, had to be a SSS plus legendary pole general just to get in. Okay, so imagine all of the S or A ranked alien generals, fighters, tacticians that get passed over just because of their race. And to even go further on their xenophobia, they managed to fumble the Wookiees. And a lot of people don't think about this, but just bear with me for a second. Imagine this. You have an entire planet of super strong, agile, durable, and deadly warriors that are loyal to a fault, okay? And they are grandfathered in from the last administration that they were cool with, okay? You had Wookiees running with clone troopers on Kashyyyk, okay? They like these guys. And instead of perhaps incorporating them into your new empire, right? Maybe as a strike force, special operatives, going where no one else can. Instead, you enslave them for manual labor. How does that make sense? How does that manual labor, the labor anyone could do, the labor a droid could do, and you made every member of this race a enemy forever. Interesting. Yeah, the Empire did not make good decisions when it came to their xenophobia. That is for sure. And the Sith rule of two, a holdover from Palpatine's days, managed to rear its ugly head when both Sith, Darth Vader and Palpatine, proceeded to kill each other on the second Death Star. And while core life was okay for your average Imperial citizen, even that was a mixed bag, as you were constantly being surveilled and tortured or kidnapped or killed for dissonance. And even core worlds were not safe, as Gorman, a very important place in the galactic sphere, was ransacked for calcite in order to build a space station that lasted for 1 week. So, ultimately, the Empire is a step down from even the Infinite Empire of the olden days. I have to give it a C tier. Now, the third Empire from Star Wars on this list is the New Order. And unlike the first two, these losers have no redeeming qualities. All they are trying to do is copy what made the Empire cool, but worse. They fumbled Starkiller Base in a way that was even worse than the Death Star, a project that took even longer than Death Star to complete and was made from an entire planet, and was also destroyed after being used once. Its standing army amounted to one planet and a couple of fleets. The only reason the First Order posed even the tiniest bit of a threat was because the entire Republic was asleep at the wheel. If the Republic had a standing army, a basic fighting force, or any other precautions, the First Order wouldn't even be an issue. At the very best, the First Order is nothing but a group of organized raiders. Okay? The conflict was so underwhelming that most of the galaxy could just ignore it. Okay? You could play it on the news and say, oh yeah, it's those guys fighting again, and not even worry about it. And the First Order got so much worse in The Rise of Skywalker. Because imagine your struggling army gets handed an entire fleet of Star Destroyers, each one equipped with a Death Star laser. Okay? And you fumble that. You have the entire fleet destroyed in an afternoon because you only had one GPS. Huh? Huh? It's abysmal. It's abysmal. Kylo sucks. Snoke sucks. Hux sucks. The entire talent pool sucks. Like, don't even try. Don't even try. They tried to bring back Palpatine in order to bring a little bit of hype to the organization, but let's face it, this Palpatine was washed. Okay, should have stayed in retirement. Shouldn't have came back. He just embarrassed himself. First Order is a solid F tier. Okay, let's face it. Admiral Thrawn, if he had seen Kylo Ren's helmet, would have been able to dissect the entire Empire and take them out before lunchtime. Okay? Get these losers out of here. So, this video kind of got away from me. I intended it to be a quick 20-minute adventure, in and out. And while recording, and I realized I was about 45 minutes deep into the first half of my tier list, I knew something went wrong. I wanted to put out what I had, so here's the first half of the tier list, and I will return in a week or two with the second half of the Evil Empire tier list. If you want to catch that, please subscribe to the channel, leave a like on this video, and comment about any other Evil Empires I may have missed. I'm going to be talking about the Q, Viltrumites, Noxus, and much more during next week's discussion. But if there's anything else that I should bring up, or an evil empire that you saw that was not on the list, please leave a comment and we can talk about it. Anyways, hope you guys are doing well, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.
Okay, got it. No, there's no change in the plan. Bye.